Okay, you will enjoy this next presentation. I want to tell you a little bit about Nikki Jackson Colasso, who joined Facebook in 2009 and is currently head of public policy for Instagram. She works cross-functionally with members of the product, engineering, and operations teams to address safety, privacy, and security issues on Instagram and across the internet. From 2003 to 2007, Nikki managed international customer product policy for Google in Mountain View and in Hyderabad, India. Prior to joining Google, Nikki spent a year in a fishing village in Hokkaido, Japan, teaching English. I guess that's Hokkaido, Japan. Hokkaido, Japan, teaching English. She is the mother of two and holds a BS in Media and Communications from Northwestern and Master of International Affairs from Columbia. Let's please welcome Nikki.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to see all of you here today. I am a resident of San Mateo County, and I was telling my husband that I was going to be speaking to you this morning, and he said, Warren Slocum is going to be there? And I said, yes, and he said, I feel like I know that man. So anyway, it was lovely to meet you in person this morning, and I actually never thought I would say this to you, but we do need to get your doodle on Instagram. So I run public policy for Instagram. I've been at Facebook for about 5 years. I've actually been on the Instagram side for a year, and prior to that, I was running a lot of our child safety initiatives for public policy, so thinking about how we actually make our products safe for teens, the many teens who use our service. I do a lot of that on the Instagram side as well, but this should be very casual, so if you have questions as I'm talking, please feel free to just raise your hand and we can sort of chat. But I'm going to talk today about Instagram, but also about smartphone usage globally and some trends in smartphone usage, just to get you thinking about that, and then talk a little bit about how Instagram plays into that, into what we call the app ecosystem. So I guess if I had to talk about smartphone usage, I would say that more people today have access to computers than ever before. And for most people, those computers are the computer that they have in their pocket in the form of their mobile phone. And so I was trying to pull some data on smartphone usage globally, and you can see for some of the major markets, and including markets that are just really growing, developing markets like India, Russia, you see the growth in smartphone usage from 2011 to 2013 is just incredible. So across the board, we're seeing more people access web sites and services, using commerce sites, buying, selling on their smartphone than ever before. And so I thought I would just do a little quiz. How many people, or what percentage penetration, smartphone penetration, do you think we have in the United States, if you had to guess? Anybody want to venture a guess? Okay, pretty good, 70%. So in 2011, it was 49%. In 2013, it's 75%. So we see, just an explosive use of smartphones. This is where people are connecting. And so when you're thinking of getting in touch with your constituents and connecting with them, definitely think about how you can do that on mobile, because that is where people are connecting. And this chart looks even more impressive if you survey the 18 to 24 demographic. So this is where people are spending time. And it's really important that all of us, something that we definitely do on the Instagram side, we have to make sure that our site and our services look good on mobile and they're easy to use on mobile. Because if they're not, by and large, you're missing a huge opportunity. This is also true of social networking. So by and large, more people are accessing social networking sites from mobile than from their desktop. And you can see across the board, anywhere you see yellow, that is where people are accessing from a smartphone, and blue is desktop. And the one that really sticks out to me is LinkedIn. A lot of people who are working are probably accessing LinkedIn from the office environment. I don't know, maybe they're in the market for a new job. But otherwise, everybody is pretty much doing this on mobile. And of all of those, just about everyone, all of them have an application that you could use on your smartphone, and some of them are exclusively mobile, almost exclusively mobile. So Snapchat, how many people have heard of Snapchat? right? So Snapchat are these messages that you send to each other, and they're ephemeral. What we say, they sort of disappear. So I get a message, it disappears after about 5 or 7 seconds. And when this first came out, people were saying, this is crazy. Kids are going to use this for the wrong purposes. And what the studies now show, and what we know anecdotally from looking at how people are using Snapchat, kids that use this as a private form of communication, they by and large don't abuse it. And more marketers and e-commerce sites are looking to use services like Snapchat to get in front of people because they're so powerful from a messaging perspective. So the other, I guess, word of caution is when you hear about these new sites and services, particularly ones that young people are adopting, I know I have a tendency to say, well, what is this about? But these kids are really the kids that are discovering what is next. And they, in some ways, are just more open and much more aware of these technologies and what they can do for us. I also just wanted to talk a little bit about app usage. This is the USA. From a base of all smartphone users, most people had 23 apps on their phone in 2011. In 2013, it's 33 apps. So again, if you have a site or a service that where you really want to connect people and you don't have an app, of course there is some cost to development. It's worth having an application. It's just much easier for people to access and get fast service when they're doing so from an app. And so this brings us to Instagram, what Instagram is, its growth in the app ecosystem, as we call it. Instagram was founded in 2010, so we're about 4 years old, and Facebook acquired us 2 years ago in 2012. We have about 250 million people that use our service. MAP is a measure of monthly active users or monthly active people on Instagram. And 65% of those are outside the US. And that's also true of Facebook. I don't know if it's not 65%, but the vast, vast majority of people accessing sites and services are outside the US, which makes sense when you think about it. I'll also just note that we have about 100 people on the Instagram team. I am one of 2 public policy people for Instagram, and we support a base of 250 million people. Plus, I have 2 kids, so sometimes, it gets a little busy. But we are able to do these things at scale because we are spending time developing our sites and services and figuring out what we call the one-to-many ratio. How do you as one person support many people out there? Our values and our mission are to capture and share the world's moments. And so we want people to be photographing everything around them at any time and putting that up on Instagram for others to consume. And our values are community first. Instagram, more than any other social network that I know, is a community. It is a community of people. Many of the people have never met before, but they gather together around different topics, different passions, events, and they photograph those things. They use common hashtags, and that is how they join and create a body of photography and imagery that represents that image or that thing. We also believe in simplicity, and I think everyone, in theory, believes in simplicity. But how many people use the Instagram app? It's okay if you don't. Okay, so when you use the Instagram app, and hopefully you have this experience, when you open it up, it's just very, very simple. It's very simple. So you get this really simple interface, and I'm going to take you through it. You upload a photo, you choose a filter, and then you share it. The privacy model is very, very simple. You can either be public or private. That's it. And simplicity is important. It's important not only for Instagram, it's important for you and your sites and services because people are just more likely to interact with you when they feel like there's a small amount of information that they can consume easily. If you have too many links, too many things going on, it's really overwhelming for people. So as we think about interacting with public sites and services, you almost want to think of it as you would a for-profit business. What is the easiest way to get your people to the information they want? And we certainly think about Instagram that way, but it's a good, I think, rule of thumb for anyone. And then inspire creativity. I'm going to show you an example of a photo that I took later. But Instagram is really about creativity more than Facebook, where Facebook is about here's who I am as a mother, as a full-time working mom, with all my passions and interests, where I went to high school, what books I read, what restaurants I've been to. Facebook is a snapshot of me online. Instagram is very different. Instagram, it's really about the image first and me second. So on Instagram, I could decide I don't want to be Nikki. I want to be birdwatcher123. And all I do is photograph images of birds in different environments. And that is really my body of work on Instagram. So while we call Instagram a social network, it functions very differently from Instagram. You could, in fact, have a whole body of work just around doodles or dogs or whatever, and people do this on Instagram. So I encourage you to check it out, but it's really about creativity. And the screenshot on your right is from when Instagram was named Apple's iPhone App of the Year in 2011. So this will be review for those of you that use Instagram regularly, but I'm just going to take you through a flow of how it works so you get a sense, hopefully, of the simplicity that I was talking about. You can take pictures on your camera phone, or you can take pictures from the camera within Instagram. You can rotate it, crop, adjust. Again, there are only a couple of buttons on this page, right? So if you were somebody using this for the first time, very easy to try and figure out what you're supposed to do. It's very, very simple. You can then on the bottom, I don't know if you see the little hot air balloons, those represent different filters. And filters are just overlays that you can put on a photo to change the texture and the look of the photo. People love filters because you can take a color photograph and make it black and white in under a second. You can make it look retro like it was shot in the 70s. You can do anything you want, basically. And I apologize if I call that retro. However, internally we call the 70s retro. I was born in the 70s too. But, it's very retro, but there are lots of different kinds of filters. There are many filters, in fact, that won't offend you, so I really encourage you to use them. So I thought I would just show you an example. Does anyone know who this is? Can anybody? I don't know if you can tell. I would not expect you to be able to, but if you want to play a guessing game, I'm game. Yeah, somebody almost had it. So somebody guessed Neil Armstrong. This is Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin came to Instagram a few weeks ago, and I was just like so tickled to meet him. I grew up on The Right Stuff, which isn't Buzz Aldrin, but I grew up on these like sort of stories of the early space programs, and I just think he's like great, and I was so excited to meet him. And I actually told this woman who just graduated from college, I said, Buzz Aldrin's here, and I'm going to go take a picture. I want to go take a picture of him. And she was like, oh, yeah, he's like totally before my time. And I was like, to be clear, he was also before my time. But I was still really excited to meet him. So this is the photo that I got of Buzz Aldrin when he was sitting down. And actually, there were a bunch of people standing around, and he was sort of sitting, looking out this window. And I liked the photo. But when I saw it on my phone, I thought, oh, it's too bad. The lighting is not great. And it's sort of green. I don't know why it turned out this way. So this was the photo that I got on my phone. And then, oops, sorry. And then that's the photo that I ended up creating using the Instagram filters. So I don't know if you think this looks better. I thought it looked much, much better. But what I love is that he's sitting there and he's sort of looking up into the sky. And so I thought, gosh, if you have to take a picture of Buzz Aldrin, like this is the one that I wanted to get. So you see the difference. And what it is are very, very simple tools that can make your content more beautiful. I also use this a ton with my kids. And then you can have services that basically take all of your Instagram photos and put them into Christmas cards, into other things that you might want to use. But again, it's about the power of really, really simple tools that allow people to connect in a way that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. I talked a little bit before about Instagram as a community. Instagram is a community of people that love taking photographs, but it's also about beauty. So you don't have to take a perfect photograph on Instagram. You can take a picture of whatever you want, but what we see are different people posting content, and you just see these really, really beautiful photographs, and they're able to highlight that content on Instagram in a way that they are not on other sites and services. So the picture on the left is the costume exhibit from the Met Museum. Just really, really beautiful. The one in the middle is actually a former Instagram employee who is a freelance photographer who took this photo. It's a very, very simple photo, just very beautiful. And then the one on the right I point out because this is a teen. She's a very, very popular teen on Instagram. Her name is Quincy Davis, and she's almost a professional surfer. Like this is what she does. I mean, she's in school, but she surfs, and she takes these amazing photos. She goes out with her friends, and they take amazing photos of her surfing and doing really cool things. And I point her out because teens love Instagram. Teens are spending a ton of time on Instagram, and they follow, you would think that they follow sort of like the Justin Biebers of the world. What they love doing are connecting to these teens who are doing really, really interesting things, and who have a high degree of professionalism, or just sort of focus in their particular area at very, very young ages. So Instagram and a lot of these apps are also a great way to connect with young people. If you're thinking about things like civic engagement and connecting with people, it's great to use these services that teens are using. So I talked about this a little bit before, but Instagram is a community of people coming together, and we have a blog, which is blog.instagram.com, and it touches 58 million people per day read that blog. It has a huge distribution. We have more followers on our Twitter account than Twitter, the company, does. And so this is just a very, very, very powerful tool. So if you're not on Instagram, this is my big push to have you be there. And then I also just briefly wanted to talk about how people are telling their stories on Instagram. So I've told you a little bit about the tools and how you can make content look better in the community. But people also use Instagram to tell very powerful stories. So this photo is from a woman. It's actually a 15-year-old woman in Singapore who had struggled with an eating disorder. And what she did was she used Instagram to document her eating habits over time as she got healthy. And so Instagram became a really powerful tool for her as she sort of overcame that challenge. And she had tons of people from the community following her and helping her along. And so you get this really powerful sense of storytelling. And then we ourselves, as a company, try to work with people to tell stories. So in February, during Black History Month, we worked with Howard University, which is a traditionally African-American university in Washington, D.C., on an Instameet. An Instameet is a meeting where Instagrammers come together and they photograph in honor of a certain event, or they're going to photograph a certain thing and all look at it from a different viewpoint. It's called an Instameet, so it's a great way to get people together. We had an Instameet with Howard University, and they basically did a walking tour of Washington, D.C., photographing key sites and figures from the civil rights movement. And we worked with them. We gave them a little bit of funding, and we're working with them on this. But again, it's a really interesting way to pull people together and to unite around a particular cause. The photograph on the right is a campaign that we did. It was during Anti-Bullying Month, which is in October. And what we did was we had older people, like 25, 30, 35, posting photos. You'll get where I'm going with this. Again, I'm not offending you. But older people basically posting photos of them in their awkward years, showing that as a teen, like, you get through that awkward moment of your teen years, and you can look back to sort of tell the tale of what that was like for you. So we did this campaign called the Awkward Years, which I think was one of the most highly engaged with posts. Really, really interesting for teens to see this. And so there are a lot of ways that we certainly can run campaigns on Instagram, but you can as well. And that's really it. That's sort of what I wanted to take you through. So I'm happy to answer some questions if people have them, and if not, I will pass off. Yeah.
How would you recommend public policy or government to share that via picture?
Okay, so the question is, how would we recommend that different sort of public entities use Instagram? So I think that one way to do it is to have an Instagram account that you can point people to and link from your website. But what I would really recommend, so people engage with pictures more when they feel like there's a story. And so if you are an elected official, or if you are somebody that is engaging with people regularly, the photo of you in front of the flag is important. It's important to demonstrate who you are. It's an important piece of your identity, but it doesn't really tell a story, a meaningful story for people in your community. And so if you're thinking about how to engage with people, so for instance, if you want to tell a story about business growth on Broadway Street in Redwood City, you could actually have an Instameet and invite people to photograph Broadway Street and post those on a particular hashtag to tell a story of what kind of restaurants and businesses have a presence there. So I think there are ways to make the content better in terms of tell an interesting story if you can, but also to use these sites and services to get people together and to highlight what's going on in your community. I don't know if that totally answers your question, but. Okay. I don't. If we have one more. Yeah.
This is sort of esoteric, but I'm curious about laws around subliminal perception. I'm curious about laws around subliminal perception and the Snapchat, that really fast.
The ephemeral sort of.
The ephemeral
and
yeah. Youth using ephemeral. Have you studied the psychological impact of subliminal perception?
So I have not studied that particular psychological component of ephemeral messaging. I have done a lot of studying around how it's actually being used, and so we do a lot of focus groups. I personally, in my prior work at Facebook, almost exclusively looking at how teens use social media and what they're doing. There's no question that you're going to have teens doing sort of, I'm going to just say in quotes, bad things, sending inappropriate pictures or whatever. But what we have found is that teens are seeking private places, and it's not that they're seeking private places because they want to do nefarious things. The vast majority are doing really interesting things. They just need private spaces to communicate with their friends where they feel like they have that connection and no one's watching them. So as much as being a teen in the year 2014, you'd think, wow, but they have all these connections to sites and services. It also means that it's really hard to just like talk to their friends and take pictures and share with each other. And so they tend to use Snapchat because there might be a picture like something funny they ate for lunch. They may not want to post that on Facebook because then it's there forever. They might not want to post it on Instagram because it's not really beautiful. It's not really telling a story, but it's something funny. Doesn't need to be kept, doesn't need to be saved, doesn't need to be cataloged as part of who they are, but they send it to a friend so that they can tell that story and then it goes away. So while I haven't done research on subliminal perception and sort of the psychological impacts of these services, my personal view is that, on the whole, they are very... They serve a purpose in communication for teens, and as long as you as a parent are having those conversations with your kids to the extent that you can, I think all of these different communication tools have benefits.
Are there laws that limit subliminal perception, the duration of an image?
There's nothing that I know of. From a legal perspective, we look more at what's harder for us to think about is if you have an image that goes away, right? So if I were to send you an image that was like bullying you or harassing you, if the image is gone, what we call hard deleted from your device, meaning it's really not there, how do you then report that? How do you actually go and get help if you need help? I think those are some of the challenges. I don't know of like more of the psychological, like the subliminal, the privacy piece of it, but I think more from a safety and a security standpoint, you need to have, sometimes it's helpful to have a record, and those are the kinds of things that I think, like as technologists who focus on kids, those are the kinds of things that we think about. Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.